How aware are you of exactly what your client is saying versus what they mean? You're asking good questions. You're not just hearing, nodding your head and moving on to your agenda or running your own goal for the meeting, but actively actually going deeper by becoming a very good listener. Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a seven-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in. Broadcasting from the beautiful Poconos in northeastern Pennsylvania. This is your host, Joshua Gillow, back with Sales Made Simple podcast. And this week, I wanted to share a personal story with you. I'm blessed to be our Boy Scout Scoutmaster in our local Boy Scout troop. My son's part of it, and it's just such a blessing to spend time with those young men out in the woods and to see them growing up and trying to make a difference in their life and just giving them experiences and all the fun things that come with Boy Scouts. And, we do a lot of fishing, and we do a lot of gun shooting, and we do a lot of, archery, and we do all kinds of cool stuff. And especially in today's day and age, we have so many young men that are searching for masculine role models and just to do boy stuff. I'm 46 now, and we grew up in the woods, building ponds out of the stream and catching fish and making all kinds, we would go hunting. We would do all kinds of crazy fun things. And we didn't watch TV at all. We didn't have cell phones, obviously, back then. And if we played a couple of rounds of Contra or something like that on the Nintendo, a week would be a lot. We were always outside working, building, dreaming, fantasizing, doing all kinds of fun stuff. And I grew up in the country, and that's what it was. We didn't have, the closest town was like a mile and a half away, and it was all through cornfields. And you only went down there for a small store, and that was that. But everything was on the farm. Everything was out in the wilderness where we lived. And I loved it. It was a great childhood, snowmobiles and four-wheelers and all that kind of stuff. But I say all of that because I was talking to one of our older scouts, and he just got done finishing up a leadership course in the Boy Scouts. And the one thing I love about the Boy Scouts is the fact that they truly do want to build young leaders, and they have tons of courses and different types of training you can go through as a young man. And he is 14 or 15 now. And so I asked him, he just finished up this course, and I asked him, I'm like, so what was the one thing you took away from this course? It's a weekend course. They sleep out in the woods, and it's up in northeastern Pennsylvania, and it's an amazing thing. It is. It's all taught by the different scouts. And that's another thing I love about the Boy Scouts is the fact that it's all scout led. Like us as adults, we're there to guide and make sure that they get where they got to go, and they have the utility that they need, the different supplies. But one thing that we don't do is we don't tell them what to do. We let them figure it out, and we can watch them, if you will, making good decisions that impact the troop in a positive way, and we can watch them make bad ones. But we need to give them space to be able to do that. That's how leaders are forged. I don't believe that leaders are born. I believe that leaders are forged by having opportunities to win, to lose, to fail, to succeed. All of it. We have to have space for all of that. Anyway, back to my story. So he comes back, and we're chatting at the picnic table on our scout meeting the other night. And I said, so what's one thing that you learn? The one thing that really stands out for you? He says, the difference between listening and hearing. And I was like, tell me more about that. So we started getting into detail about how he and his perspective at, say, 15 years old, how he is really good at hearing things, but listening is a challenge for him. Like, he hears people talking, he hears the sound, he hears some of the words, but his definition was, hearing is kind of hearing the sounds and hearing the voices. Listening is actually understanding what they're saying and following it along. So you're actually with them. And it made me reflect on this idea, right? It's not just around leadership in general in your business, how you're leading your teams or your subcontractors or your anybody really on your team, or even how you're talking to your customers. This has implications that are well beyond all of that. And those implications are, how are you showing up as a man or woman out there in the world? Are you listening? Because I was asking myself, do I listen more, or do I actually hear, or do I only hear their words? And there's times when I'm tuned out in my own little mind, and I'm like, hey, I'm just kind of listening, and or the wife is saying something and I'm like, I hear her words, but my mind is somewhere else. And I'm like, wait a minute here. Like this is not just a simple Boy Scout thing. It's something that we can all use as valuable. So what I want to do today in our call, or not a call, but in this episode, is to ask the audience, like, do you find yourself hearing more or truly listening? Are you just picking up sound, or are you picking up the context and all the details and nuances of the conversation, specifically with your customers? Are you just listening in order to respond? That's something that we often do. I know it's something I used to do a lot. I would listen and I would hear, I thought I was listening. I would listen enough to hear what they're saying so I could be thinking, what's my next question for them, and not really internalizing what they're actually saying. And I know this might be sounding like splitting hairs, but I'm telling you, it has massive impact in your business and in your life. I mean, just think about it at home, right? With your spouse. If you're only hearing what they're saying, how frustrating is it when they say, hey, what do you think of that? And you're like, what did you say? Like, I'm not really listening. I'm thinking in my own head. I'm just hearing your words, but I'm not listening. That pisses most spouses off, trust me. So the point here is when that happens and your customers feel that you're only hearing their words, you're kind of just standing there, but you're not truly taking them in, or you're not truly internalizing them, or truly working through helping them solve their problem, or truly understanding what their problem is to solve. It changes the game when you do decide to start listening instead of just hearing. And that is an absolute discipline in the mind. It is so easy for us just to hear, nod our heads, think about our next question, hear, nod our heads, take down a note, and not truly get the context of what our customers are asking for, specifically in the sales cycle. Specifically when we're trying to figure out if we're a good fit for each other. Specifically when we're trying to figure out if not just a good fit for each other, but is this a good fit for my business? When we just hear, we aren't getting deeper. We're simply staying, if there's, say, 10 levels to relationship, level 1, level 2, level 3 is your basic priming levels. That's where most men specifically, women are better at this, but men stay in 1, 2, 3, maybe, right? Maybe they get to 3. But I'd love to tell you listeners that there's levels all the way down to like level 10. Deep, deep listening. And that's when you're not just hearing their words, trying to create context around them, or listening to their words. It's when you're actually watching body language. It's when you can understand how to translate body language, understand what it means. You know, when you have a customer that is looking down, very low voiced, not really paying much attention, and you say, so do you want to move forward with this project? And you're like, yes. Right? And then you wonder why 2 weeks later you still haven't gotten a check. Like their body language is saying, I really don't want to do this, but I don't know how to say no. So I'm going to just become smaller and quieter until they leave. And then next thing you know, they just never get back in touch with you. They're not strong enough to just tell you exactly what's on their mind, which is, no, I'm not going to do this. So are you picking up on that? That's part of active listening. It's not just with your ears. It's also with your eyes, believe it or not, because only 30% of communication is through the auditory sensories. When you get into visual, we're talking almost 65%. It's pretty wild, right? So if that's the case, how aware are you of exactly what your client is saying versus what they mean? Are you hearing versus listening? I know this might sound confusing, and I'm not trying to confuse you guys. I'm simply trying to prove a point that in the Boy Scouts, they're teaching these young men how to lead by becoming better listeners. And a way that he had mentioned a better listener is by asking good questions. So if you're a good listener and you're connected to his story, you're asking good questions. You're not just hearing, nodding your head and moving on to your agenda or running your own goal for the meeting, whatever it might be, or the sales call, whatever it might be, but actively actually going deeper by becoming a very good listener. So I'm really hoping somebody out there today is driving along or mowing or just laying pavers or doing what we love to do as an industry, right? Just getting out there, just getting it done. And they say, wait a minute here. Do I hear better or do I listen better? Because I'll tell you right now, listeners, when you can get to a point where you're very aware and purposeful with where your mind's at in a conversation, and you're not lost in your own mind trying to figure out what the next question is you're going to ask that customer, when you have those questions already lined up in your mind, you don't have to think about them. They just become, who you are, not what you do, you can listen so much deeper when you're not rattling in your mind thinking, what do I need to say next? What do I need to say next to this customer to get them to say yes to me? What do I need to say next to get this project? What do I need to say next? It's that constant crazy chaos in your mind. When you have a step-by-step process, when you have the sales tools to be able to know what's coming next and what you're going to say next before it even comes out of your mouth, you already know what you're going to say. You already know what you need to say next, and you can stay actively listening with each and every customer, not lost in your mind trying to figure out how to outsmart these guys? How do I figure out how to say the perfect thing every single time? If you can take that bandwidth and you can turn it into listening bandwidth, and not how do I get this person to say yes to me, but in a bandwidth of, holy moly, I know exactly what I'm going to say next. Like, she says this, I say that. Pretty simple. It's like a dance. And with dancing, if any of you guys out there or ladies out there have ever tried dancing, I know my wife and I did some ballroom dancing when we first got married, and that was not an easy thing for me to do, right? We went to a bunch of lessons, and I struggled like crazy just trying to get my feet, my upper body. Like I kept saying to myself, you're just not a dancer. You're just not a dancer. This is not going to be your thing. And something about ballroom dancing, and my wife, she loves that idea. And to dance, and it brings her such smiles and joy. And I'm sitting there like, man, I need to show up with this. I need to make this happen. And I struggle so much with trying to get my feet and my upper body and the tempo and all of that going on, right? Until you start doing it for a little while. And next thing you know, you can start doing it. And by listeners, by no means am I any kind of great ballroom dancer. I'm basic at best. But my point is, I learned at that point in my life that even something that I struggled with, I could get better at if I just kept working at it. And pretty soon, the things that I used to, the different moves that I used to struggle with, whether it was like something to do with a step, the cha-cha, or whether it was something to do with how I would release her and she would spin and come back, like those things, because I kept repping them over and over again, became simpler. They became easier and more intuitive. I didn't have to think. I was so in my head with that. Now I take that same metaphor of dancing and bring it into the sales world, and it's the same thing. If you're like the first day at dance school and you're like, I've never done this. I don't even know what the waltz is. I have no idea how to move my feet. I don't know where I am in space and time. If you're taking that kind of mindset into a sales conversation with a customer, they know. Just like anybody could pick you out on a dance floor saying, this guy has never trained this. He's never done this before. And unfortunately, that's how our industry runs. Because most of us, including myself, we don't start out thinking, I need sales training, I need business training, I need to figure out how to be a great investment person so I know how to invest long term. Like, that's not how we start. We start out with, man, I really love building cool stuff. I really want to use my hands and build stuff so that I can change the world, or I can make good money, or whatever your bigger target is. But it mostly starts with our hands. And then we've got to put a business around it. Then we've got to learn how to run and manage money. Then we have to figure out how to sell this stuff, because without sales, we don't have a business. All those things kind of stack up over time. So I say all of this because anybody out there listening that's like, man, it's just not my thing. I'm not a good listener. I'm great at building. I can hear people talk, but I don't get deep into things. There's hope for you. There is the opportunity that you can learn. If I can learn how to get through a waltz, you can certainly learn how to connect with people. You can certainly learn. It is all teachable. It is all your body, your mind. It's completely adaptable. All we have to have is focus. That's all. So I say all of this because at the end of the day, our success will be directly set on the shoulders of whether you listen better than you hear. And if you just hear, you will only get so far. And if you truly want to take your business to the next level, it's about learning how to listen, not being chaotic in your head when you go into a sales meeting, and certainly having a great repertoire of tools in your tool belt for sales. How do I communicate at the end of the day? How do I know what comes next? How do I know what has to be first? How do I know when it's the right time to ask that question and not piss a client off or chase them away? How do I know all that? Imagine all the confidence would come as if you had a 7-step process and you're like, all right, we're on step 1. All right, cool. Step 2 is coming up. Step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6, step 7. And by the end, we either have a heck yes, we're moving forward, or a graceful exit. Maybe we're not a good fit. Imagine if you had that kind of superpower. Listeners, it's always possible. It's possible for you. It's just a matter of shifting out of the hearing mindset into the listening mindset. And I've seen already a shift just in one night of this young man and how he's showing up in the troop, because he's actively asking questions and listening purposefully. He's focused and there in the room. He's not just asking a question and then the brain going off in a different direction. He's actively engaging now, and you can do it too. So if you guys need help with this, book a call down below. This is what we do here at Yes Express. We go through and we help landscapers, hardscapers, outdoor living professionals become better communicators. Because when you can become better communicator, that doesn't just mean more sales. That means a more exciting, less stressful, less overwhelming business connection you have with your clients, with your team members, with your subcontractors, with everybody. Communication is the core of it all. If you need help with that, book a call down below. We can show you how to do that. We can give you the tools. We can teach you the tools that'll get you from where you are to where you want to be, to grow your business with less stress and less overwhelm. Book that call. You'll be happy you did.